There are bills out there that people are spending every day that are worth a lot more money than just $1. In this video, I'm going to go over what you need to be looking out for on your $1 bill so you don't accidentally spend it or sell it to someone for too little amount of money. So the first thing you need to know about these $1 bills is that you can have consecutive serial numbers. By that, I mean, look at this example. The serial numbers are identical except the last digit. One is a 5 and one is a 6. That is consecutive. Next, the serial number is so important. Look at this bill right here that was graded by PMG, a 64 EPQ. It's important to know the highest grade we can achieve in grading paper money is 70, but the reason why this bill sold for $1,725 is because it's a 30 million serial number. By that, you can see the serial number starts with a 3 and there's zeros following that. Another very important thing to know is that if you look on the left side of the bill, you see the letter J, and you also see the J at the start of the serial number. The J stands for the Kansas City district, which these bills were produced for. And you can also see a number 10. There are 4 of them around the bill. What does that number mean? Well, that is the 10th number in the alphabet, which is a J. So there is a reason for everything on the bill. But again, the biggest factor for this bill selling for $1,725 is the grade and the fact that it's a fancy serial number 30 million. This specimen note sold for $1,840, and here's why. So specimen notes are essentially bills that were produced for different countries' banks. So if they ever got US currency, they could compare it to a genuine bill. These bills are produced by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, and they're not considered legal tender, meaning that you cannot spend them if you find it. Plus, you wouldn't want to because they're worth a lot more money in collector value. But the way you can tell if you have a real genuine specimen note is if the serial number is fancy, and more importantly, if you see the red stamps on the front and or the back of the bill in red. There are people out there that will try to manipulate and alter a bill to make it look like a specimen, but you can know if you have a real one if the serial number is fancy or it's completely missing. Specimen notes will either have a missing serial number, a fancy serial number like this where it goes from 2 all the way up to 9, or there will be a solid 0 serial number. That one little stamp on the specimen on the front and the back of the bill here allowed it to sell for $1,840. Similar to the last note, but this is an ascending ladder serial number bill. This $1 bill is from 1985, and because it has a serial number starting with 0 and ending with 6, and it graded very highly at the 68 PPQ grade, PPQ meaning premium paper quality, that's only 2 points away from the perfect grade of 70. Remember, to achieve those really high grades, you need to have 1, no folds or dents or damage on the bill, and 2, once you get above the 60 grades, centering becomes very important. So you can see the margins of the bill if you look left, right, top, bottom. The bill looks centered very well. The better the bill is centered, the higher the grade is going to be, and that's what allowed this note to get the 68 grade and sell for $2,160. So here's something you really need to pay attention to. This bill was produced on Natick test paper, and it sold for $2,400. You may be asking yourself, how do I know if my bill was produced on Natick test paper? Because that's why this bill sold for so much money. So here's what you really need to know. You need to have a 1977A $1 bill that was produced through a certain serial number range. There were approximately 3.8 million of these Natick test paper notes produced for the $1 denomination. Essentially, they were just trying out different pieces of paper to see if it would work out in circulation. There's a lot of different variables of why they would do something like this, but what you need to be looking out for is if you have a 1977A $1 bill, the start of the serial number has to have a letter E, the end has to have a letter H, and it has to be between 768 and 8064. That is a serial number range with a total of over 3.8 million notes produced. So they are out there, but it is challenging to get them in the high graded condition like this one at a 64 EPQ, and this Natick test paper bill sold for $2,400. Wait, 90% of you that watch the videos are still not subscribed. So you better subscribe right now so we can keep the lights on. Wait, no, I was kidding. So remember earlier we were talking about fancy serial numbers. Now this bill is not in the best condition, but it sold for $4,320. Now you may be asking yourself, like, what do I do if I find one of these notes? How do I sell it? Where do I go? The last thing you should do is go to a pawn shop, because most of the time these pawn shops deal with a lot of general type items. A lot of the time they don't specialize in paper money or coins, so they might offer you a very small amount of money, even though your bill's worth a lot more money than they offer you. That's why I suggest going to multiple coin or currency shops and getting the opinion of multiple experts. And if they all tell you that your bill is not worth money, then you should trust them because they probably are not lying. Then from there, you're going to find other avenues to sell your bill at. I have a completely free ebook that goes over coin handling, grading, and values. A lot of the same concepts apply with paper money. If you want that, it's completely free. You got to click the link below, but you don't have to do that. Just keep doing your homework and research and realize that even though this solid number 1 serial number bill with a star at the end is in really low graded condition, it's still sold for $4,320. Now just imagine if this bill was at the uncirculated grade, that means there's no folds whatsoever on the bill. It would have sold for a lot more money than $4,300. But that's why if you find one of these bills out in circulation in your pocket change, or if you come across one in a collection, the first thing you need to do is make sure you're not decreasing the value by folding it or damaging it. Keep it very safe, possibly put it in between a book, but don't forget about it, somewhere safe and flat so it doesn't get folded or damaged. Because again, this VF, meaning very fine PMG graded 20 note that is a dollar bill, sold for $4,320. Not going to spend a ton of time here, but it's crazy how highly this $1 bill graded at the 67 EPQ grade. The biggest thing on this one is it's a serial number 1. Now this is the bill that everyone wants to get their hands on, and that's why it sold for $11,162. This 1963A Federal Reserve note $1 bill sold for $16,800, and this is why. So 1963 is really not a rare dated bill. There's pretty much no bills from 1963 that are going to sell for this much money unless you have a bill that's a solid number 9 like this. The cool thing about this note is the next serial number would start with a 1 and have zeros after it, but this is considered to be the last serial number in the block. So technically speaking, if the Bureau of Engraving and Printing produced this range correctly, once it got to that solid number 9, it would jump over to starting with a D at the serial number and ending with a D instead of a C, because that's the next letter in the alphabet. But the serial number would be a serial number 1. So it goes from serial number 1 all the way up to solid number 9s, then resets, and the suffix, which is the last letter in the serial number, will go to the next letter in the alphabet. So long story short, this solid number 9 bill that was graded at a 65 EPQ sold for $16,800. One of my favorite types of bills that you really need to pay attention to. This is the one that many people look over simply because they do not know. So this is considered to be a web note. This web note sold for $2,232. Now these are bills that people are constantly spending because they don't know what to be looking out for. Now this one might get picked up because people see a star at the end of the serial number, but that's not the main reason why it sold for so much money. Again, this is considered to be a web note. So how do you know if you have a web note? Now there are multiple different areas that you need to be looking out for on your bill to see if you have one of these notes. Let me tell you really quick what a web note is without wasting too much time. Essentially, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing was trying a new printing process where instead of printing sheets, they would produce a single sheet the same way that they produce newspapers. So it's a continuous roll of bills, but they found after producing quite a few of these, quite a number of these web notes, that the production style was not to their standards. They didn't like it, so they stopped producing them. But web notes are indeed very, very valuable. The first area you want to look at is Washington's portrait. He's going to look a bit more washed out there. I'm going to throw up a few diagrams to show you the difference. Next, you're going to be wanting to look at the plate positions. Now, a plate position essentially means, without boring you, where the bill is located on the plate. What you need to know is that if your bill has a plate position that looks like this, where it's just a number on the front bottom right hand side of the bill, you have a web note. And the last area to look at is on the back of the bill. Now, if you look at In God We Trust to the right of that, you're going to see the plate position in that location. Now, if you look at your normal bill, it's going to be located in a different position. So there's a large difference there in where the plate position on your bill is located. So if you have a bill that looks like this and it has all the features I'm talking about, and on top of that, if it's a star note, and on top of that, if the condition is really, really good, remember, condition is so important when it comes to these bills. All of these things combined allowed it to sell for this much money. Now, just imagine if your bill didn't have a few of these things, it could still be worth a couple $100s. Now, imagine spending a $1 bill when in reality, it could have been worth hundreds of dollars. So look at this bill. I want you to tell me down in the comment section below before I tell you, why did this bill sell for $29,900? I'm waiting, go ahead. So this is a web note, similar to the previous one, but you can tell that the condition is lower. You can physically see those folds in the bill. So you may be questioning, why did the previous note, that's also a web note, sell for so much less money than this bill. Now, if you haven't caught it yet, this has so much going on with it. So first of all, it's a web note. Second of all, and the biggest reason why it sold for so much money is because this is a mismatched suffix error bill. So you can see the last digit in the serial number on the left is a star and on the right it's an L. So what happened here is during the last step of the printing process, which is the overprint, which is the seal and the serial numbers, there was an error where the serial number machine got stuck and that digit did not change on one of the machines, allowing it to have this mismatched serial number error. And all these things combined allowed it to sell for $29,900. Now, if it was in better condition, if this person saw this immediately and didn't fold it, they would have had significantly more money than they got. I mean, $30,000 is a lot of money, do not get me wrong, but a lot of people need to understand if you put a fold anywhere on your bill, you're pretty much cutting the cost in half of how much you could have sold it for. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more.